Hello everyone, and welcome to my Young and the Restless official 24 channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Kyle suggests getting married to Claire. Is this evidence of his devotion once Audra's truth comes to light? Spoilers for The Young and the Restless suggest that Michael Mealer's character Kyle Abbott would ask Haley Erin's character Claire Newman to marry him. When the truth about Audra Charles comes to light, will Kyle use that as evidence of his loyalty? Fans of Y&R are aware that Kyle decided to keep some important details about his time in Nice with Audra from Claire. Though it wasn't totally accurate, Kyle promised Claire that nothing had happened and that he would never betray her. Claire still needs to find out that Audra and Kyle continued to kiss a lot in her sleeping automobile. Naturally, Claire must also find out that Kyle was only wearing a towel at the moment and that he accompanied Audra to the bed before retreating. Kyle allegedly intended to reveal Audra's seduction plot with Victor, but did he really need to go that far? When the true story eventually comes to light, Claire will most likely ask that question. Kyle's partial disclosure will raise some red flags and further cast doubt on Claire's loyalty. Claire will undoubtedly begin to question whether Audra is correct in assuming that Kyle genuinely wants her in place of her. As Kyle considers the idea of losing Claire, he might start to panic. When Kyle is desperate to show Claire is the only woman he can have, what will he do? Kyle might even pop the question. It's possible that Kyle will propose to Claire and declare her his lifelong partner. In an attempt to prove to Claire that Audra is completely unimportant to him, Kyle would press for an engagement. Kyle might at least try to show Claire that he is committed to her by making a marriage proposal, even though there is no assurance she will accept any wedding preparations. Whatever happens, according to previews for The Young and the Restless, Kyle will need to change his approach as Claire learns more about what happened in France. Kyle has created a lot of problems for himself, but is it possible that an engagement ring would help him get out of it? Genoa City is no stranger to explosive secrets, passionate betrayals, and bold romantic gestures meant to patch up the chaos. And once again, the soap opera gods have handed us a storyline simmering with all three. In the eye of this storm, Kyle Abbott and Claire Grace Newman. With the truth about Kyle's entanglement with Audra Charles finally cracking through the polished surface of his version of events, Kyle is pushed to the edge, and what does a desperate man do when he's on the brink of losing the woman he claims to love? He proposes. But is Kyle's proposal to Claire a genuine act of devotion, or a calculated move to silence her doubts and rewrite the narrative? Let's rewind to the root of this mess. Kyle Abbott had been walking a fine line between redemption and regression ever since his complicated relationship with Audra Charles flared back to life overseas in Nice. Though he had promised Claire complete honesty and loyalty, Kyle conveniently failed to mention some key moments that happened behind closed doors with Audra. To Claire's face, Kyle swore that nothing happened, the classic Abbott deflection. But that couldn't be farther from the truth. In reality, Kyle and Audra kissed multiple times. In her sleeping car, while he was wrapped in only a towel. And he got into her bed before eventually pulling away. It wasn't just a flirtatious misunderstanding, it was a betrayal cloaked in weak justifications. Kyle had insisted that his aim was to trap Audra and expose her as a manipulative player in Victor Newman's master scheme, a pawn who tried to seduce her way back into power. But Claire, sharp and emotionally scarred from her own manipulative past, isn't likely to accept that excuse without some serious skepticism. Why did Kyle need to be half naked to gather intel? Why did he have to allow Audra's lips to graze his more than once? If it was all a show, who was the audience? The moment the truth begins to unravel, as it always does in Genoa City, Claire will be blindsided. While she's no stranger to secrets or emotional manipulation, what's different this time is that she let her guard down for Kyle. She believed in the sincerity of his promises. She trusted his loyalty. And now, everything that trust was built on seems to be crumbling. Claire has grown into a woman who doesn't let herself be a doormat, especially after rebuilding her life and identity following the trauma caused by Jordan and the Newman fallout. She's strong, and when she finds out the full truth, Kyle better be prepared for the storm. Of course, Kyle knows exactly what's coming. The second he sees Claire's demeanor shift, that cold flash of suspicion in her eyes, he panics. Kyle's not just fighting to keep a girlfriend, he's battling to preserve the only real relationship he's had since his messy divorce from Summer. He needs Claire to believe that she's the only woman he wants. But words aren't enough. Not after the towel incident. Not after the kissing. So Kyle, in a sudden burst of desperation disguised as romance, makes a bold move. He proposes marriage. Yes, you read that right. Kyle Abbott gets down on one knee. It's the kind of moment soap fans live for. The candlelight dinner hastily thrown together, the velvet ring box pulled from a blazer pocket, the wide eyes of the woman being asked to bind herself to a man she's no longer sure she knows. Kyle may even offer a heartfelt speech about second chances, about fighting for love, about proving that mistakes don't define their future. He might invoke Harrison's name, suggesting that Claire is part of a family now, that they are building something real, something worth salvaging. He might even cry. But Claire Newman is not easily fooled, especially not anymore. Initially, she might be stunned into silence. The very idea of Kyle proposing would have thrilled her not long ago. But now, with betrayal barely a breath away from full exposure, it reeks of manipulation. A marriage proposal at this juncture doesn't feel like a fairy tale. It feels like a trap. A way to rush past the damage and tie her to a man who hasn't even fully admitted what he did. Still, Claire loves Kyle. That's the part that makes this whole mess so dangerous. She's not immune to his charm, and deep down, a part of her does want to believe him. But can she marry a man who didn't think she deserved the whole truth? Who thought withholding information was a form of protection or worse, control? The real question is, does Kyle even know why he's proposing? Is it guilt? Is it fear? Or is it real love, expressed in the only language he knows, big gestures that try to smooth over small fractures? Maybe it's all three. Because Kyle, for all his arrogance, does have a heart. He does care about Claire. He might even love her in that frantic, self-destructive way men like him often love, passionately, possessively, but not always wisely. This isn't the first time Kyle has gotten in over his head with women. His entire romantic history is a roadmap of impulsive decisions and misplaced loyalties. From Lola to Summer to Audra and now Claire, Kyle has a pattern. When things get messy, he throws fuel on the fire and calls it affection. But Claire is different. She's not here for the games. She's not a conquest, and she won't be soothed by diamonds and vows spoken under duress. What comes next could fracture everything or forge something new. Claire might accept the ring, only to throw it back at him once the full truth is laid bare. Or maybe she agrees, not out of love, but out of a need to control the situation to get closer to the truth. Or, perhaps in a twist only the young and the restless can deliver, she walks away entirely, leaving Kyle stunned with a ring in his hand and no one left to fool. There's also Audra to consider in all of this. She's not going to disappear quietly. The moment she hears about Kyle's proposal, she'll have something to say. Whether it's jealousy, spite, or a strategic move to keep Kyle tethered to her, Audra is bound to drop another bomb. She might even twist the knife and tell Claire everything Kyle left out. Audra doesn't just play the game, she is the game. And Kyle's attempt to whitewash their recent history with an engagement could backfire spectacularly if Audra gets the last word. Meanwhile, Victor Newman is still looming in the shadows of this entire storyline. Let's not forget, he orchestrated much of the Audra-Kyle situation, and is likely keeping a close eye on Claire's response to all of it. If Victor senses that Kyle's proposal is a cover-up, a ploy to keep Claire from pulling away or digging deeper, he might intervene. And when Victor intervenes, it's never subtle. Back at the Abbott house, the ramifications of Kyle's hasty proposal are sure to ripple through the family. Jack will want to know what's going on. Diane will no doubt express concern, likely behind Claire's back. Ashley, if she's around, may throw her 2 cents in, calling it a move made out of fear rather than maturity. And as for Harrison, Kyle's young son, he's become an emotional touchpoint in every relationship Kyle has. Will Kyle use Harrison to persuade Claire to stay? Would he stoop that low? It's a messy web, but it's also peak. At the end of the day, this storyline isn't about whether Kyle loves Claire. It's about how he loves her and whether that love is strong enough to survive the weight of his lies. A proposal isn't proof of devotion. Not when it comes after deception. Not when it's time to silence doubts rather than celebrate trust. Kyle may think a ring can fix everything, but Claire's no fool. She knows that love without honesty is just another trap, and if she's learned anything from her time with the Newmans, it's that broken promises have a way of cutting deeper than betrayal. As Kyle waits for Claire's answer, ring in hand, heart on his sleeve, one thing is certain. The next chapter in their relationship won't be written with rose petals and champagne. It'll be carved out of confrontation, confession, and consequences. And if Claire walks away? Well, Kyle might just learn the hard way that some lies can't be buried not even under a mountain of diamonds. Kyle Abbott wasn't a man who handled uncertainty well, especially not when it came to love. Standing in front of Claire with an engagement ring, his heart was pounding not just with fear of rejection, but with guilt and desperation. He wasn't entirely sure whether the proposal was an act of love or an attempt to outrun the consequences of his actions. And Claire knew it. Claire's eyes bore into him, silently demanding more than promises. She didn't say yes. She didn't say no. She just looked at him, really looked at him, as if she were trying to see through every word he'd ever said. And in that silence, in the stillness that followed his proposal, Kyle began to realize just how much damage he had caused by twisting the truth. Kyle, Claire finally said, her voice low but steady. Why now? The question stopped him cold. It wasn't the enthusiastic yes he had hoped for, nor was it a firm rejection. But it was cutting. Because I love you, he said quickly, too quickly. Because I don't want to lose you. Because what we have is real, and I want to fight for it. Claire arched a brow. You want to fight for it now? After you let Audra kiss you? After you walked into her bed in a towel and failed to mention any of it? You want to fight for it with a diamond ring, not with honesty. Kyle reached for her hand, but she stepped back. It wasn't like that. I told you. You told me nothing happened, she said, her voice rising with raw hurt. You swore to me that there was nothing to tell. But it wasn't nothing, was it? Kyle swallowed hard. I stopped it before it went too far. But it went far, Kyle. She snapped, her composure slipping. Far enough that you had to pull back. That means it was happening. That means you were willing, at least for a moment. And you didn't think I deserved to know that. Kyle sighed, his jaw tightening. It was a setup. I was trying to get Audra to show her hand. Claire interrupted. While wearing only a towel? While climbing into bed with her? Don't insult me with weak justifications, Kyle. You're not stupid. You knew what you were doing. You just didn't think you'd get caught. The silence that followed was thick with tension. Claire folded her arms across her chest, not to guard herself, but to stop from shaking with fury. She had spent months trying to believe in Kyle, to trust that someone in this town could love her without an agenda. And now it felt like she'd just stepped into another version of her past, with lies disguised as love and manipulation wrapped in romance. Look, I made a mistake, Kyle admitted, lowering the ring box. I should have told you everything. I was afraid you'd leave. Claire's laugh was humorless. You lied to keep me. And now you think this ring will fix it. I don't think it'll fix it, Kyle said, finally dropping the facade. I just want to prove to you that you're the one I want. That I'm willing to commit to you, publicly, permanently. Claire studied him for a long beat. Do you think I want a public commitment from a man who hasn't even earned my private trust? His lips parted, but no words came. She'd struck a nerve, and they both knew it. It wasn't that Kyle didn't love Claire, he did, in his way. But the problem was that he didn't love her right. His love came with caveats, with half-truths, with last-minute confessions meant to soften the blow of deeper betrayals. And Claire, after everything she had gone through with the Newmans, with Jordan, with the world questioning her every move, deserved more than Kyle's panic proposal. Meanwhile, across town, Audra Charles was sipping her wine at Society, already aware of the latest development. Gossip traveled fast in Genoa City, especially when rings and regrets were involved. She smirked at her phone screen where the news had just pinged from a mutual acquaintance. Kyle Abbott had proposed to Claire Grace Newman. Well, she murmured, swirling her glass. That didn't take long. Audra wasn't surprised. She knew Kyle. She understood his every instinct, especially when he felt trapped. A proposal was classic Kyle, grand, impulsive, and just polished enough to feel sincere. But Audra also knew something else. Claire didn't fall for acts. Claire wanted truth. And truth was something Kyle had always struggled to give. I wonder how long until she throws that ring in his face, Audra mused, before texting Victor. Audra, Kyle proposed to Claire. It's damage control mode now. Want me to light the match? Victor's reply came quickly. Victor, wait. Timing is everything. Victor Newman, for his part, had no intention of letting this situation settle quietly. He had orchestrated part of the France setup for a reason, to test Kyle's loyalty and to push Audra's boundaries. He didn't expect Kyle to fall completely back into old habits, but he also wasn't shocked. Now, with Claire involved and Audra still circling, Victor knew he had leverage and he wasn't done using it. Back at the Abbott house, Diane Jenkins stood frozen at the top of the stairs. She hadn't meant to eavesdrop, but she'd overheard Claire's voice rise and decided to stay put. What she heard alarmed her, especially the part about the bed, the towel, and the lies. After Claire stormed out of the living room ringless, fuming, Diane made her way down. "What were you thinking?" she demanded. Kyle rubbed his face. "I was thinking I needed to do something before I lost her." "A proposal isn't an eraser, Kyle," Diane said, her voice laced with maternal disappointment. "You can't just cover your mistakes with a pretty box." "I know that," he snapped, then softened. I didn't want her to hate me. I love her, Mom." Diane sighed. "Then stop giving her reasons not to believe you." Kyle felt like he'd been punched in the gut. It was all falling apart. The plan to protect Claire, to protect his ego, to protect the fantasy of who he was becoming with her, it was collapsing under the weight of his own lies. Claire, meanwhile, had gone straight to Sharon at Crimson Lights. "I need some truth," Claire said, voice shaky. Sharon, ever the maternal voice of reason in Genoa City, listened as Claire spilled everything: Kyle's lies, the bed incident, the proposal. Sharon didn't interrupt. She simply offered Claire the same calm that had helped half the town through their darkest hours. "I think he loves me," Claire said softly. "But I think he loves himself more." Sharon nodded. "That's the hardest kind of love to survive, the kind that asks you to shrink yourself for someone else's comfort. Claire, you don't owe Kyle a yes. You don't owe him forgiveness on his timeline. You owe yourself the space to figure out what you want, with or without a ring involved." Claire blinked away tears. "I thought I was done with secrets. I thought Kyle was different." "He can still be," Sharon said. "But he has to choose to be." Later that evening, Kyle sat alone in the Abbott mansion, the engagement ring still in his pocket. He thought about calling Claire, about sending a text. But what would he say that didn't already feel empty? Then his phone rang. "Claire." His breath caught. He answered. "I need space," she said before he could speak. "I don't want to see you. Not now." He swallowed hard. "Claire, please." "No," she cut in. "This isn't about you needing forgiveness. It's about me needing clarity. And I can't find it with you standing in front of me with a ring and a lie. So don't come looking for me. When I'm ready to talk, you'll know." The call ended. Kyle stared at his screen, stunned. For the first time in a long time, he had no idea what came next. And that's where The Young and the Restless leaves us for now. With a man sitting alone in the ruins of a rushed proposal, a woman walking away not out of anger but out of self-respect, and a ring that, instead of symbolizing love, had become a monument to fear, guilt, and recklessness. But this is Genoa City. And nothing stays quiet for long. Will Kyle fight harder to prove he's changed? Will Claire uncover more secrets that Kyle tried to bury? Will Audra twist the knife even deeper with another revelation? And what is Victor planning in the background? Because make no mistake, he's always planning something. One thing's for sure, Kyle may have proposed, but if he truly wants to be with Claire, the real work begins now. And rings don't fix betrayal, only truth does. And truth is never free. Not in Genoa City. Not in love. Not when Audra Charles is still watching and waiting.